up, y'all? Mr. Cruz here, the hardest worker in the room. What is up? Here with another BandLab tutorial. Sorry, my chair's squeaky. Here in this tutorial, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you the very first thing that I do every single time that I open BandLab. One, because this setting, and it's a setting that I changed, but the reason is because the setting is set to what it is by default. And it's not always, in my opinion, it's not something that I would ever work with. But I'm going to show you guys here, and hopefully this will help alleviate some of the stress and the frustration that you might be seeing whenever you're working in BandLab and somehow things start sounding good in the beginning, but then they end up sounding like offbeat and really terrible towards the end. All right, so I'm gonna just open up a random project, and I'm gonna show you that this happens every single time by default. All right, so what I'm gonna do is let's cancel this out right here. That's not the first thing that I do. Blah blah blah. All right, yeah, there we go. So I'm gonna go over to view, and in view you see this right here where it says snap to grid. All right, we're gonna make sure that that's checked, but by default BandLab has your grid size set to smart. So what that means is that when you're moving regions around in here, you see how like it's like very fluid. That's not necessarily something that we want, but if you kind of zoom in, let me see how I can zoom in here. If we zoom in a little bit, and then let's move to one of the regions here, right? It's very fluid, but when you get really close, it'll like snap right there. All right. So what I want is I usually always set it to bar. So when I set it to bar, all right, fine, allow. When I set it to bar, what ends up happening is like now that motion is not very fluid. So now it's automatically snapping to a grid, but it's snapping to a bar instead of smart. So what smart does is like the more you zoom in, the bigger those jumps are between like where you're snapping your regions. But if you're zoomed out really far, that means like you can go past like it's just super duper complicated, and it's not necessarily beneficial. So usually when I end up opening BandLab, the first thing I do is I go make sure that snap to grid is set on, and then I set it to bar. So you can also set it to any of these others down here, these other resolutions. Those are helpful if you kind of want to fine tune something. So I'll show you here. So this one is set to bar, right? Between 5 and 7, right? This line right here would be 6. Let's see if I can zoom in just a touch so we can see 6. All right, 5, 6, 7. Each one of those numbers is a bar. So I can only move it 1 bar's worth. If I change my resolution to half, that means I can get in between a bar. So I can get it'll jump in half bar increments, so on and so forth, all the way until you get to 132. So obviously, like you can see the grid size in the back, how it got very fine. And then I'm making those jumps at 132nd or 132 resolution. So there you go. That's the first thing that I do when I open up BandLab. So now when you're moving around your loops or your drum patterns and stuff like that, it'll sound a lot better because it'll actually be on beat. Sometimes when it sets to bar, it'll end up throwing your whole mojo off, and then it ends up sounding bad. So there you go. See you guys next time. Hopefully this is helpful to you guys. Leave me any comments or suggestions for videos in the future, because I'm gonna get back into doing more BandLab tutorials for you guys. All right, it's your boy Mr. Cruz out.